back, I believe, in October, November. We received about 17 different proposals. An internal team reviewed them. I present, and what you'll see tonight is awarding 4 of the nonprofits, and they're listed: AWOL Outreach, Unifor One, GSO Peace Corps, and one step further, Gate City Coalition. Our for our violence prevention strategy, each of these programs will be responsible for providing monthly activity reports to our violence prevention coordinator. This monthly programming activity will measure the number of violence interruptions, mediations, locations of activities, outreach activities, public education, victim advocacy measures, community responses to shootings, and updates on programming. So as you see, one of the ways, oftentimes people ask, okay, Trey, well then how do we quantify what may be prevented or what doesn't happen? So as you see, we collect this information, you'll be able to see the activities that these nonprofits are doing to prevent crime in our community. So as before, my communications with council will be on a monthly basis as I provide monthly updates. But one of the bigger things that I'm excited about for this particular effort, the Office of Community Safety is working with our IT department to purchase software that will allow us to build a database. And I look forward in the next couple of months that we'll have a dashboard that the community will be able to access and see. I know the last couple of years when we started down this road, one of the questions that we consistently had from the community was, how do we know how these programs that are non-conventional are performing? So with this effort and with your support, we'll be able to provide those things and provide even more transparency to our community.
And I believe Mrs. Thurm has some questions.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I'm kind of curious with having 4 different agencies doing this work, how will that be allocated throughout the city? I know in the past, we focused on just a couple of neighborhoods and areas. How will it be distributed?
Great question, and thank you so much. So with the range of nonprofits that have been awarded, we are happy that they will help support. You know, for the last 4 years, we partnered with Gate City Coalition, who's been a tremendous partner. As you can see, they're one of our partners that we're re-awarding, and we're excited to see these other nonprofits come to the table, incentivized by the city to step up and support that. Your question to how will we know where? As you can see, again, the different nonprofits do some different things, but one of the components of the Office of Community Safety is to be able to train all of our partners in the same model of interruption, but also train them in a way that we can understand what they bring to the table. I'm looking at the first one up. AWOL Fitness obviously will focus on different areas than Unifor One and GSO Peace Corps, and all of them will be able to touch different areas in our city.
So are they going to be assigned areas in the city?
They won't be assigned as we've seen before. However, we continue to work with our police department to identify areas that are experiencing higher crime, but also that's one of the jobs of our violence prevention coordinator is to work with different areas in our community that has seen increased violence.
Okay, I've also noticed that some of these organizations are very new. And to get a $300,000 grant for a brand new organization is a little surprising. Can you tell us more about the qualifications and how you measured one program as opposed to another? And
well, some of them are new to us, but they have been operating in the community for quite some time. As I look at them, several of them have a significant footprint here in our community and in this work. But the evaluation process is something that I can unpack, and it would take me a while to unpack it here in this meeting, but I can give you that feedback and provide you the information that went into the assessment of the different people, nonprofits that submitted for the RFP.
Okay, thank you.
No, you can go and then me.
Thank you for that, Trey. I, along with Councilperson Thurm, have concerns over one. We're diluting something over 4 organizations that one organization was doing. There's a lot of questions about that in general. What do we actually get? Like, you listed some wonderful things that these organizations are supposed to do. I mean, I was trying to start writing them down, and I couldn't write them down because there's so many. Violence interruptions, victim, discussions, and all. You probably listed 8 to 10 things. If you've got $100,000, what's the total budget on the other? Like, I'm familiar with One Step Further in Cure Violence, but I'm not familiar with the other ones at all. One of them started August of 2023. When did you put the RFP out?
We put the RFP out in October. Yeah.
October.
September, October.
So they just started 2 months earlier. And so maybe they've got some history, but how does that $100,000 relate to the total budget? And what do we get per organization? Like, I keep going through these, and it doesn't really tell me, to Councilwoman Thurm's point, how it's broken down geographically. I think geographic breakdown, because if there's overlap, then what are we doing? Then how are they going to collaborate? And I see on one of the items it was, well, we're going to have a 3-day session in January for them to be trained. Well, if they need to be trained, it just kind of muddies it up a little bit. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about is one of the most important things in this city that we obviously had some extreme difficulties with in having the most homicides we've ever seen. And if we're going to be allocating, $500,000, we need to make damn sure we're allocating it in the most appropriate manner, and we need to make sure we've got the most information we can get. And right now, I don't think we have the information in totality that we need.
The 3-day.
Yeah.
The 3-day training that you're noting is actually the training that our Office of Community Safety will provide to all of the nonprofits. And also, even further, we're extending even the nonprofits that were not awarded, we are inviting them to this training so that all of the partners in our cohort will have the same understanding of how the City of Greensboro is approaching the violent issue.
Trey, you and I have worked together for a long time, and I greatly respect anything you put in front of me. I think from a city council perspective on this item, or these items, it's difficult for me to support because I don't feel like I have enough information, such as the dashboard. This is, as I've heard across the concrete, let's build the plane while we're flying it, I think was the terminology that was used. Well, that hadn't worked for us. We built the plane while we're flying on homelessness, and we've hardly scratched it. We talk about success of Regency Inn, but it's been closed more than it's been open. So we don't scratch it. When we're talking about violence and the violence that we saw last year, having new companies, how do these 4 companies, nonprofit or for-profit, I don't really care. I'll support a for-profit if they stop the violence. But how do they collaborate together? How is it broken down geographically? What is Company A, Company B, C, and D? What are their special attributes that why we chose them and how they can collaborate together? The metrics and performance. We're working on a dashboard, which I think is great, but if we don't have the dashboard yet on how we as a city council can look about how the metrics and performance are going to be graded so that we can disseminate that information to our constituents, that's building the plane while we're flying it. And I think that just looking in some of the budgets, I think it is important running a nonprofit. You know, $100,000 is a lot of money. Our budget is being affected this year. You know, the county took us out of the budget. It was $40,000. $40,000 hurt us. They didn't seem to understand that. But for what you're talking about covering, I don't know how much we get for $100,000 spread over each company for 4 companies. I really don't see that being a value add, and so I have great concerns.
So each of the nonprofits understand that the funding received from the City of Greensboro, the funding that you see here is not to support the totality of their nonprofits. So the $100,000 is to incentivize them as part of a cohort, a partnership with our Office of Community Safety to address this issue. But it's not to support their total budget.
I understand. I think that lies my concern. I'm less concerned about incentivizing a nonprofit than I am truly impacting and seeing a decrease in violent crimes. And it's tougher when you spread it out over 4 than, especially when we don't know. I don't know hardly anything about the other 3.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
So I trust you, but we're talking about police and safety and community safety.
So that's where I have to tell you. So this is not a police component. It is a non-police component, a non-police function that we incentivize nonprofits, organizations that are within our community, not as much to fight crime and not to fight the street level issues that are happening, but this is a proven way that we've seen and that our police department is supporting, that we can help address the crime before it happens or issues before it happens, when we can have nonprofits or folks who have reputations within our community to intervene. This is an intervention approach and not as much as a crime fighting approach. So I understand where your questions and where you're coming from, but this is a non-traditional approach.
Mrs. Hightower, then Dr. Wells, and then Mrs. Thurman.
So, Trey, I understand the concern about crime in our community, and I understand, you know, we're looking for ways. But I told you in the beginning when you presented this, I wasn't really on board with this because you took the $500,000 from Gate City Coalition and spread it out now with other agencies. And as I told it up, it's $400,000. So where's that? It's $400 a year. Where's the other 100 of the 500? Is one of my questions. And where is the money coming from? So is this coming from that money that we were going to allocate for Gate City for the next couple of years? Where are you pulling that money from? That's one of my questions around this. The other question is, what is the model that you're trying? You know, this is probably not new. Unifor One, I know who they are. They've been around for years. They've worked with Sherman. So they've talked about stop the violence. They've done some things around voter education, all of that. But what is the model that they're going to be utilizing? So would I know where to send someone if I encountered a youth that needed to be? Are they focused on youth only? Are they focused on adults? What age? I mean, so I'm a little, I don't know what this is either. I really wish we'd have had a little bit more in-depth information because I too have a lot of questions. Don't get me wrong. I know our community needs support. And those communities that are having the most difficulty, we ought to be concentrating and focusing in on. But I want to know what the model is going to be used. Do these groups understand? Gate City already has a model. They have a national model. They know what to follow.
That's what he said.
But what about the others? So I'm a little concerned about that as well. And why I really am concerned that you split this up. I really am. And I hope it works, but and I pray it works for the better good of everyone that it's going to impact. But certain groups should have some type of mission that they're going to be doing. So when you got this money, is it helping a program they already have, or are they going to create something new? So I got a lot of questions. Sorry if I look like I'm jumping over the place, but I guess I am, because I didn't know this was on the agenda until I saw the agenda on Friday.
So, Dr. Wells, but I do want to say something.
Can you talk to me though
I'm sorry,
about
were
where
you
the money?
finished?
No, because he didn't answer
So-
not one question. That's okay.
I didn't know well, you had a lot of comments, and I didn't know which question to address.
Well, I asked you
I think
about where's the money
the one
coming
question
from. I asked you about the model.
where-
I
where-
asked you how long this is going to be. Where's the money coming from?
Right. So this allocation is the allocation that was voted on in this year's budget, and so this was voted on for this particular purpose, and so this is the utilization for the funding. When you talk about the gap of the 400 between 400 and yes, there's another 100,000 left over from the four nonprofits that were awarded 100,000 each for this particular year. That gap will be utilized for training purposes as well as the purchase of the software to build the database.
If I can jump in quickly, I'm also going back to the presentation that Ms. Letitia McNeil made to Council at the November 16 work session when we talked about public safety, and this was discussed that we were bringing it to Council, and that an RFP was going to be issued or was already on the street, but this was a result of GSOPs on purpose to solicit community partners. If you will recall, I still remember during the budget discussions and we were talking about funding, one of the things that came up was that the $500,000 was dedicated towards one organization that was actually involved in violence interruption. And I remember or recall Council having a conversation around we should not be in the business of having to fund that alone, but there are other partners in the community that we can also partner with that will also do the same work. This is not supposed to be the entire budget of those partners, but will be able to be a contribution to those partners so that they also can seek for funding to be able to do that. And if you start identifying geographic areas, you run into a big problem. And that's why the RFP clearly states, and even in the staff report, it clearly says within the city of Greensboro. And in order to keep us and the vendors accountable, CM Davis indicated that we're going to have a monthly report to Council and a quarterly report card to the Council and community. And so while 100,000 on one hand may seem small, but over a 3-year period, we expect that that would not be the only thing in each partner's budget. That's kind of how I'm understanding this. And we will be able to also hold the vendors accountable. But I think that Manager McNeil went through some of this during our presentation back on November 16. I just had to pull that up to see what was discussed during that meeting. Again, I think also if I will go back to earlier last year during Council's retreat and we identified Safest City as one of our priorities, this was also something that was brought up at that point in time about how we invest in that on multiple fronts. So just trying to connect the dots for you all going back to February of last year. Thank you.
So is this money designated for anything particularly when they're using this 100,000? I mean, is it for only operating? Is it for, I mean, support for people in the community, families? I mean, we don't know. So we don't really know what every organization is going to be doing.
So that was part of the RFP process, was to evaluate each organization to ensure they fit the appropriate model for violence interruption that we're looking for the framework.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next was Dr. Wells.
It seems to me we adopted the pure violence program, and we've been hearing up here, it's on all the money's going to one foundation or one nonprofit to, with the program. I see it that this is a way of not just flying by, trying to decide while we go along, because there is a method, and I think that he was saying, Assistant City Manager Trey Davis was saying that they have a plan that they're going to use. They're going to use that interruption, is it called, violence interruption model. And I see it as a way of expanding with 4 different groups. There will be more people that will be able to be touched. And I think this will affect the whole violence that we're having in the Mr. Matheny. Are you listening? I think this will have an effect on the violence that we have. The more people that can get instruction, and you can do more with 4 than you can do with 1. And we have been hearing complaints here about all of the money going to one agency, and how do they get it all? So I think I go along with it. I think it's good. I think it's not just that we're exploring methods and approaches that we hope that we'll find the right answers. So I'm really in agreement with it.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Okay, I have Mrs. Thurm, then Mrs. Hoffman, then Mayor Vaughn, and then Mr. Matheny, and then Mr. Holston.
Thank you for keeping up with that lineup. It's going to be a full-time job.
It's not easy.
Can you remind us, this is a significant cut for one step further, I believe, correct?
It is, yes.
And what are we looking at in terms of the reduction of their services? You talked about we have something that's working and, going from there. I'm concerned that we have something that's working in some neighborhoods and we're going to destroy it by such a big cut all at one time, rather than, maybe splitting it 2 ways or 3 ways or whatever over a period of time. Do we have any idea or any feedback on what this means to a program that we know is working now, at least in some areas?
Part of that I can't answer, but what I can answer is that Gay City Coalition, and I'm going to call her name directly, Ingram Bell has been a tremendous partner and still is and will continue to be, and an example. What I strongly feel and see and hope is that this new approach that we have will only support. I watched Ingram Bell for 4 years carry the weight of everybody in this city, expecting that she was going to single-handedly stop violence. And that's impossible for one person to do. What this model is providing is the needed support, the additional services. And I'll say this, Ingram and I have directly had conversations about the need for additional support. Ingram has a tremendous reputation in this community. and she'll continue to have that. And there are some things that she can do well, but there are also things that other entities or other groups in this community can do well. And I see that those groups will be able to support and be just as impactful and work together with the existing partners that we have.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Yeah, certainly I've been supportive of this program for the last several years since we instituted it. My concern is, I'm always willing to look at other organizations that work in this violence interruption arena. My concern is what can you really do for $100,000 a year? I mean, the Gate City Coalition has had a budget, I think, of $500,000 since we instituted the program. And whereas we are looking at 3 additional groups here, you know, I have to trust you, I guess. I mean, I do trust you. That these that the responses to the RFP have been vetted carefully, but I still have concerns about how far does $100,000 go in terms of working in whatever neighborhoods to try and reduce violence there. And I'll have to just defer to your having looked at this carefully, and that you are making this recommendation to us based on your evaluation that this is the best thing for us to do at this point. But I do have concerns.
All right, thank you. Mayor Vaughn?
I think Trey brought up a number of good points, but especially one when he talked about diversifying our efforts and not relying just on one organization to do the whole violence interruption. While it's $100,000 and $100,000 is a good portion of money, I believe that the Gate City Coalition is doing what Trey said he hoped that these organizations would do, and that is diversify their funding. We know that the Gate City Coalition did get money from the county, and I believe they got some significant money from the federal government. So I don't believe they'll be relying completely just on the city alone. I'm proud that the city stepped up first and did this, but it does seem that they are getting support from other areas, so that this is a good time for us to look at supporting other organizations. 2 things. I want to make it clear, and Trey, I'd like you to confirm that this money is not coming out of the police budget.
No, it is not.
And I think that's very important, because I think there are some people who think that this is taking away from police resources. And I just want to confirm that that is not the case.
No, it is not.
Okay. And then lastly, as I look at the resolutions, it does talk about a $100,000 commitment over 3 years. I assume that we're still going to have to vote on that every year, because we do have to hold organizations accountable. I think accountability is real important, and that they need to be able to show the impact that we've made and not just expect to get $100,000 for 3 years.
I can get back to you, Mayor, on that. I don't know that response exactly.
So that is important to me, and I'm sorry I didn't ask that to you earlier. I do think that we have to have some sort of a clawback or a cancellation clause.
I just got a nod from my brother, Larry Davis, and he said, yes, you do.
Okay,
correct.
and so we're sure that this would be an annual vote, and again, we can't commit a future council to this contract. I just want to know that there will be eyes on it every year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Matheny? And then Mr. Holston?
Thank you, Mary Kay. Again, we're talking about one of the if not the most. I'm trying to calm myself in the new year. This is one of the most important things that we're talking about in our city. And coming off what we all went to last Thursday of the funeral of Sergeant Nix, there's a lot that we need to consider. And I get the fact that we did an RFP in September, October, and I get the fact that we had a work session that they're going to bring this in front of council. It is our duty as a body, as a board, as a governing board, to ask questions and make sure that we do this the right way. I will tell you that sometimes I feel like, what's the purpose of our city council? I can tell you, looking at some of the reports back, not only in the community, but the questions that city staff got, and the fact of what we thought, how we interact with city staff. It's like, what's the point of us being here? I mean, our point is to make sure that we are governing the city and we are helping city staff make the most appropriate decisions with as much information as we can get. I've been sitting up here when Goldie called me out and said, Zach, are you paying attention? Which I get. I do that too. But I'm looking online because I don't know anything about these organizations. I saw a website for Unifor. By the way, this is nothing personal. It is nothing personal at all. I am looking at it for the betterment of the community that we all serve. Unifor had a website that's one page, nothing really of detail. The Facebook page had stuff to do about voting, registering to vote, and it went back to 2022, really, and justice for a gentleman that probably was killed in some tragic way, but not much. AWOL had a nice website, and I imagine that's the group that's downtown affiliated with the gym, which they have a good reputation. Greensboro Peace Corps, all I saw was their house on the corner of Summit and Summit View. There's nothing on social media. There is no website. I can't find them from Adam. So if we don't have information, I don't see how this board can vote. In addition, I get the fact that it's, we told you in October we're going to bring you this information to vote on. Well, that's understandable, but that doesn't mean we've given us the correct information in which to make an educated vote on behalf of over 300,000 people on a topic that affects us all. Just trust me, go with it because we've got it in front of you. Doesn't work all the time. And this is one of those cases. Funding, by the way, as it was stated by one of our city staff, that we know this programs and programs like this work. Well, why would we dilute a program essentially by 75% roughly to fund some other programs or people or organizations that we as a council know absolutely nothing about, to make incentivize other folks? And by the way, if these programs work, then find the damn funding. Don't cut somebody that's being successful if that's how y'all feel. Don't cut them. Go find the funding and let's build other people up and make you with me? Can I get an amen, Goldie? Well, no. If something is successful and can truly intervene on violent behaviors so that our homicides can go back down to the teens, if not zero, which is almost impossible, I get, but that's our goal. And if we are more strategic on this with giving us qualified information, then we can support it. And at this point, we don't have that. I've been sitting up here, I've been trying to find it on my own, which I shouldn't have to do. So, folks, it's okay to press pause. We're not going to fix it tonight. We can get more information. As much as I don't want any other meetings, I think it's appropriate sometimes to have meetings. And in this case, I just don't see how this is the time right now. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Holston, Mrs. Hightower, then I have
Thank you, Mary Kay. Assistant City Manager Davis, regarding the RFP, how extensive was the RFP in looking for the outcomes and resolutions that the city desires?
It was a rigorous RFP to ensure that the nonprofits that we evaluated fit into the model and the framework that we, as a city of the Office of Community Safety, developed for violence reduction, targeting, which includes targeting known offenders, and interrupting cycles of violence in areas that we know to have high crime, and also nonprofits that had provided a space for the community to interact and receive resources.
And if I read the information that was provided to us, there are some 16 responsive.
17.
17.
Yes, sir.
And then there was a committee that reviewed all of those. Were there some of those 17? Were there some that were deemed just insufficient, or in other words, was it a wide scale or was it a tight scale?
It was from my understanding, it was a fairly wide scale. But I would never say that any nonprofit that wants to do this work is insufficient. Maybe they just did not have the programmatic elements that we saw that would fit into and be successful in this model.
Okay. And let's see here. As it relates to the time sensitivity, how sensitive or how important is it that we make a decision by X, Y, or Z date?
All right. It's important that we do it now.
It's important that you
It's important that we move forward as soon as possible so that we can provide training for the identified groups. I think we noted that the training will come up in February. And again, I would like to see our folks train these nonprofits and continue to build the collaboration of groups that interrupt violence in our community. We know that as we approach the spring and summer months, that our violence increases. So I would really like this project to be up and running and rolling by then.
Okay. Is it fair to say that the RFPs on the four who submitted and who rose to the top, that the RFPs are more descriptive than maybe their websites?
Definitely. All of the awardees that you see here, and even more that were not awarded, had phenomenal descriptions of their efforts to be able to approach this issue.
Okay. And not just a couple of statements. This kind of work, this violence intervention work, is kind of like trying to prove a negative. It's hard to put your finger on the actual outcomes because you're really trying to prove that something didn't happen.
Right.
I know that we had the 74 murders here in this community last year. And because of that, it really does mean that we can look more so at what their outreach efforts are, which is why I'm very happy to hear that you're taking that additional $100,000 and building that dashboard, which will help to show and reflect not only for council members but also for the city as a whole. And I know there's a question earlier about taking monies from one step further and dividing it out amongst others, and that can cut either way, just depending on how you tilt your head. I just like the idea that there'll be more organizations with different non-traditional, different unconventional approaches that will impact all areas of the city. I presume that they're going to where the customer is, not necessarily setting up a base and asking people to come to them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right, Mrs. Hightower, and then I have a few comments.
Okay, I understand what you're trying to accomplish here, but I really would like to have a little bit more information and see how each organization is planning to execute their programs, where they're going to target, those kinds of information. You don't have those. And the demographics of who they are targeting, who they're going to work with. Again, is it youth? Is it adults? So I don't see and hear any type of model. And then the other piece is the training. Who's going to train them? The police department's going to train them?
No, ma'am, the
Office of Community Safety, what is their training skill? What is their background beyond GC Jack and some of that? So I'm just curious to know what exactly are you going to train them to do?
Our Office of, and I apologize.
Yeah, you can go ahead and answer my question.
Office of, and I want to jump on that one. The Office of Community Safety, our violence prevention coordinator, Arthur Durham, who we hired last year, will conduct the training.
And so Arthur Durham, who has experience with Gate City Coalition, because he was part of that, as well as coming from New York, from another, is going to be training with the model that Gate City Coalition has now. So I'm not understanding if we're going to use that model, why we would take so much money from them. My concern is this. You take money from an organization you say has been working to now put with other organizations who have not been working, but you say, well, it's going to help them diversify. Who is going to fund them more money when they say, well, the city took money from them? Why would we give them more? Why would we give them money? If the city took money, something must be there, and the reason for that. That is a concern for me. I know who Unifor is. I know Renee and her husband. They've been running Unifor One for several years, not just their website, and maybe they don't have the money to build a website. That is one of the things you have to look at. I don't know who GSO Peace is. I know who AWOL is. He's an ex-offender. I know all of that. That's not the point, okay? I don't, I'm not talking about anybody's character. I'm talking about what is the plan to make sure. I don't want Gate City to go out because they don't have all their funding. And speaking of funding, yes, they got national funding. That money is for 2 years. They didn't get all that money in 1 year as well. So that was a supplement to what we were offering at the time. I just think maybe we ought to just postpone to have a little bit more time to fully understand. Not saying we can't move forward. You're saying time sensitive. I mean, but really, can we not look at doing that? Maybe postponing for a couple weeks to come back and say, okay, I have all the information in my mind that's going to help me press the button, yes, to give these groups the money they need to do the work. Can we postpone?
Let me provide you just a little bit of feedback. One, I do want to say that, yes, many of you and many of us know Mr. Durham and his work here locally, but I do want to clarify that Mr. Durham is an internationally certified trainer in violence interruption. Yes, he has a connection to our groups, and he worked with Cure Violence Group in the New York area, but his certification is beyond just the isolation to that particular model. So I want to make that clear. But I also want to make that clarification to know the qualifications that our employee has and the ability to be able to train a network of folks that we have here. And just a few highlights, and I can resend this information to council, but for example, Councilwoman, you asked what demographics. AWOL Fitness will focus on developing K through 12 students, providing mentoring activities, community service opportunities. I think, Councilwoman, you're familiar with the work of Unifor One, but they focus on work with youth between the ages of 12 and 25. GSO Peace Corps focuses on programs with youth development and combining interactive focus group monitoring. And again, one step further is a phenomenal group that we've worked with over the last couple years, and their efforts have focused on violence interruption in different areas.
That helps tremendously. See, that helps tremendously right there. that, now, you have a little bit more information, you know what they're trying to strive for. That helps.
So we're ready to roll.
It's a kind of a train the trainer model.
And I have to dig so hard.
I'd really like to try to keep to the names we have down. Yes, Dr. Wells wanted to say something. Mayor Vaughn wanted to say something, and then I've got to say what I want to say. Go ahead.
I just when Sharon was saying that we have something going at that one place and you take away, I see it as a train the trainer model. If that's going very well there, then and they can instruct, and then some of the startup costs that they had at the very beginning, they shouldn't be having that same startup cost. So they should be able to kind of run a little bit smoother and then train other people. It's about getting it out to as many as we can. And I don't want to feel like we're taking away from one, and because we don't want to take away from one, we just do away with all the others that could help. And I don't know exactly. And then there will be some type, they have to come back and be checked out. Are you doing what you said you're going to do? If you're not, then things will change for them.
All right, Mayor Vaughn, you wanted to mention something, and then I'm going to speak, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know that we all get overwhelmed with email, and especially coming out of the holiday season. But Trey did send us an email on January 4th, which clearly mentions Unifor 1, GSO, Peace Corps, One Step Further, Gate City Coalition, and AWOL Outreach. He didn't go into the detail like he just did sitting there. But the point is, we've had this information since January 4th, and it is incumbent on us to ask questions before the meeting or to bring up concerns. I certainly don't want people to vote on something that they're not ready to vote on. But we have had this information if there were questions.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Vaughn. I'm going to say just a few things. It was asked if it was time sensitive or not. I wish we had done this yesterday. I wish we had done this last year. The reason being, I think we all know that crime is on the rise in every district of Greensboro, and that we need to figure out what we can do because of the number of homicides. I remember even Chief Thompson, and every time he goes somewhere, he says, we can't police our way out of this. We need the community. And what better way to include the community than having nonprofits who have proven records of doing this work learn from nonprofits who are already doing the work. A lot of the concern has been certain geographic areas that are not being taken care of by violence interrupters. We've heard all of those things over the years. And yes, not only did we get information on January 4th, it was also in our city manager's biweekly report. So I know I get overwhelmed with these emails and trying to read everything every single day. But a lot of the questions could have already been answered if we could have tried to look at those. Like when Trey sends something, I know it's something to do with public safety, so I try to look. When the city manager sends the biweekly, I can't always delve into all of it, but I do try to go into each category. I don't think anyone questions what is in the hearts of those who are doing the work or one step further. I don't think anyone questions that. I think what we're questioning here is, as Mr. Davis spoke so very well, we need to spread this out, because by this time, even newer nonprofits have learned where are they going to get the grant money, where are they going to get the funds, what kind of fundraisers are they going to have to support their nonprofits. So I think all of that and everything else, I really believe, because we get the question every day, what are you going to do? I'm talking about to us specifically as people. We get that every day. So I think this is one way that we need to at least try to give the community what it wants, to be able to have the people go out into the community in all geographic areas and see what transpires then. We'll be reviewing it within a year, 6 months. We'll get quarterly reports. I definitely approve this on my own, so others may have different views, and I will respect that. So I do have a motion from Councilmember Wells. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. And that passes 7-1, but Mayor Vaughn?
I was a yes.
A yes, I can't see that screen.
Councilmember Briggswaiter, it was 8
Councilmember
to 1.
Matheny voted no. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson is recused, and Mayor Vaughn is a yes, so that passes. Thank you.
Mary Kay, to clarify, or Mr. City Attorney, did we need to vote to recuse? No? Okay.
No. But we did. We don't have to, though. No. Thank you, though, for asking. Keep me on track. Keep me on track. Okay, item I2, resolution to approve a contract. That one's the one we're doing. Item I3, resolution to approve a contract in the amount of $300,000 with Unifor One. Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Hightower. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And that also passes 7-1.
I'm sorry, I don't have Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you vote?
I didn't. I'm recusing myself.
That's right. She's recused on. You don't need to recuse on this one. Right. Would you like to be recused on the other items?
I would like to be recused from all of them. I don't want anybody to say one thing or the other. You all make the decision.
So she's recused.
Thank you.
So moved. All in favor, please say aye. She is recused for this item. So we have voted. It is carried 7-1 with no by Mr. Matheny, and Mayor Pro Tem Johnson is recused. Thank you. Item I4, resolution to approve a contract in the amount of $300,000.
You have a speaker.
Oh, on which one? This
I4.
one? Yes, I4. Way of Life AWOL Outreach Incorporated, and we do have a speaker on this item. Chandrika, I believe.
Sade.
Is it Sade?
Sade.
Sade? Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
Your name, please?
Sade.
Sade?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I was just speaking on the $300,000 for the AWAR, but I thought it was supposed to be for the first one.
Would you put your mic, would you speak right into it? Thank
you. I was trying to sign up for the one that we were just speaking about the grants for what y'all just approved for Trey. Oh, okay. So it's all still the same conversation. I was just trying to figure out, the last time I was here, we was discussing help for the homeless and all that, and what we was going to do, what plan did they have. So after I left here, I went and got a plan, and I do have a business plan for the next 5 years on how to help out with the outreach and the different programs and how to come together.
Okay, so we're specifically talking about AWOL. If you have something like that, you could let staff know and talk with someone for future, but these are specifically on
I was
the
trying to
agenda.
see, can I link with AWOL? Is that a nonprofit
I'm sorry?
that's trying to help the community?
Yes.
So I was just trying to see, can I give them my information so that we can link and come up with
Sure.
a different plan?
Well, we're voting on this plan today, but if you have something different, you are welcome to give to the staff member to talk about for the future.
Is this not the same plan?
This is the AWOL
Right.
contract.
So I was just seeing if we can partner. Is this still helping the
You would
homeless?
need to talk to AWOL about that. Yeah,
If I
you would
can-
need to talk to them about that. We can't intervene in this contract now.
I can help. If she can provide your information to Gary in the back, then I'll make sure that Ms. McNeil, who is our director of our Office of Community
Are
Safety,
you in control of? Are you in the control of the 4 nonprofits that you was just discussing?
So I'm the assistant city manager of our Community Safety and Vitality, which houses our Office of Community Safety, who will be facilitating the different nonprofits for this effort. And I'll make sure that our director gets in touch with you.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's because she was speaking on the last 3 that doesn't have information. So that's what I was trying to figure out. Was y'all looking for partners?
Yes, ma'am. We're always looking for community partners to address these issues.
That would be your best.
Okay.
All right? Thank you. All right, resolution to approve a contract in the amount of $300,000 with AWOL Outreach Incorporated.
Madam Chair.
Not yet?
Well, you got to move to recuse her from each one of these.
Oh, so we want to recuse her on each one.
You can do it all at once.
Do I hear a second?
I don't want to.
All in favor, please say aye. All right, now, moved by Mr. Holston. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mrs. Hightower. Council, please vote. And that passes 7-1 with 1 recusal and Mr. Matheny voting no. All right, so we are moving on to item I-5, resolution to approve a contract in the amount of $300,000 with GSO Peace Corp.
Thank you.
Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mrs. Thurm. All in favor, please say aye. That passes to recuse Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Do I hear a motion on the item? Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Hightower. Council, please vote. That also carries 7-1 with Mr. Matheny a no and Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson recusal.
Thank
I will
you.
now turn back the meeting over to our Mayor Pro Tem Yvonne Johnson.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I-6 is a resolution awarding a contract to OU Chavis Contracting Corporation in the amount of $733,000 for the city attorney's office renovation. And we have one speaker, Chandrika Malone.
Hey, how are you guys doing tonight? I just had a question in reference to that office space that you guys are getting. Is that saying that you guys getting more attorneys? Because I do have a fair housing discrimination case open with fair housing since about a year, and they told me that they couldn't give me an attorney because my former attorney, Mr. Dickinson, that's here now, wanted me to drop the case because he was friends with Miss Nancy Vaughn's husband, which is Don Vaughn. So I'm trying to figure out, is this saying you guys are going to get new attorneys? Or am I going to be issued an attorney since I do have a case with fair housing? I spoke with Miss Love Jones, and she informed me that they would contact me.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that has
Yes,
nothing
ma'am.
to do what we are voting on now. I would suggest that you let the courier know your information, and let's see if we can get someone to talk to you.
Attorney Watts, if you could talk to her, he's the leading attorney for the city. If you could talk to her about that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Okay. Should we close? It wasn't a public hearing. It was just speaker. Okay. Could I get a motion? It's been moved by Mr. Holston, second by
And just,
Ms. Wells.
I just have one comment.
Would y'all vote, please?
I have one comment too, as I vote no.
Beg your pardon?
I said I just have one comment as I vote no for this item. They didn't meet the goal, And in principle, I can't support when you don't meet the goal. I'm sorry, but the whole purpose of having MWB goals is to do all we can to make sure that subs on the project. And so I would like to really ask that we maybe, as we talked with Griffin and Strong, but we really need to dive into why people can't be utilized, why we can't meet the goal. What is the big prohibitor from meeting the goal? We have a 27-county MSA area. So there should be somebody out there that could be utilized. Or is everyone out there working and being utilized, which is a great thing, but I really would like to know. The goals were 19 and 19, and they were 11 and 15. 11 being the M piece of MWBE, and I'm just very concerned about that. I really want this program to be successful and make an economic impact on our small businesses. I just wanted people to know why I'm voting no.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Is not this a minority contract?
He didn't meet the goal, yes,
Well,
ma'am.
from what I kind of asked a few questions about it, and it seems like they went through quite a few rigors to even get the contract.
I understand what they went through, Goldie. That's not the point.
Yeah, I know
The point
that,
is they
but
didn't meet the goal.
The
And
point that
there's
I'm saying is I thought that we wanted to get as many minority contractors as we could. And if they came up to be the highest that they could get with that, what is it?
They didn't meet the goal. My position is they didn't meet the goal.
Well, okay.
The same
All
as
right.
I would do for
But
any
it was
other.
a good
The same as I would do for
a
any
good
other
faith
company.
effort that they went through a
That,
lot of
as same
rigors
as
to
I
get.
would do for any other company that does not meet the goal.
Okay.
The goal is that's part of this program. No need to have it if it can't be met. If it can't be done, then remove it.
Council will vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, I show that the total vote on that was 7-2 with Councilmember Hightower and Councilmember Matheny voting no.
Okay. 7-2. Thank you. It passes. All right. All right. Next is I-7 is a resolution amending certain city ordinances to comply with North Carolina Senate Bill 300. Council will vote. And that passes 9-0. Boards and commissions. Let's see. Do you have, Ms. Hoffman, do you have any? Ms. Goldie? I don't have any. Mary Kay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I don't have any, but I am putting out a plea for certain districts for commissioners for the Human Rights Commission and, again, the Insurance Advisory Council. I need all districts except District 5 for the Human Rights Commission. We've had many roll off and 2 had to resign due to work conflicts. So I could use a commissioner from any district if everybody wants to look and see who they might suggest.
Councilman Matheny? Councilman Holston? Councilwoman Hightower?
Yes, I do have one reappointment, Keisha Cunningham Dockery to the Parks and Rec Board.
Second. Or motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And the one other thing is when I look on the boards and commission list, I don't see our boards and commissions listed that show who the actual members are. All it was a vacancy database. Has that been removed now that we can't look and see who's, because then I can determine when people expire, all of that. That's not attached here.
Councilmember Hightower, a couple of months ago, we sent out some information to let council know that we were upgrading our system to board manager through eScribe. We have attached a link into that council memo that is attached to the agenda that you can click on that, and that takes you to the board listings, the members of each boards, and it also shows you the vacancies that are in there. Right now, we are working to integrate the interest forms into the system as well, so that you'll have all the data bank information in there as well. But until we can get all that information uploaded into the system, that's why we're providing you the Excel spreadsheet, so that you at least still have that information.
So how will I have to access every time through this link? I got to go find it?
It's on the city website. When you go to the external city website, under government, it's under boards and commissions, so that it's available for you as well as our residents, and it's real-time information.
So if I look on here and determine I got to go to the city website to pull up the information.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe that one of my staff members tried to send you an outline today to give you like a guide, and we are working on a guide for you guys as well to have with you personally, and one to keep inside your offices, so that it gives you a step-by-step where to find this stuff while you are transitioning to that new process.
Seems extra cumbersome to me. And the reason I'm questioning this is because I had to hear from a staff member that the person who needed to be reappointed, and I wasn't even made aware of that because I couldn't find it anywhere. So that's why I was asking what this process is. But it's cumbersome. That's all I have.
All right. Councilwoman Hoffman, you have comments? Anything? Councilwoman Thurm?
I did want to thank everyone that was involved, the Human Rights Commission, for putting on an outstanding program yesterday morning for the Human Rights Breakfast, and of course thank St. James for their church service yesterday. It was very inspiring and a great service. And Temple Emmanuel last Friday night for their MLK service, which you and I attended. In addition, I had a resident reach out to me and request that I give a shout out to Clarence, at our staff person at Bicentennial Park. And this resident just spoke very, very highly and wanted me to please give a shout out and say how much they appreciate Clarence at Bicentennial Park and the work that he does and the heart and efforts that he puts forth in doing his job every day. So congratulations to Clarence. Nasha, I don't know whether you have his last name and can share that. All I have is Clarence.
I don't, but we can get that information and make sure we pass your message to him. Thank you.
Dr. Wells?
I'd just like to echo what Councilwoman Thurm said, that the breakfast was outstanding yesterday. The speaker was really full of knowledge, and it just kept our interest, so it was very nice. And then the 18th Interfaith Worship Service at St. James, we heard a wonderful message from Reverend Darrell Aaron. It was very nice. So that's all I have to say.
Hightower?
One thing, a couple of things. There is a developer interest meeting Thursday night for the Willow Oaks community from 5:30 to 7:30 at the community building on the Willow Oaks property. This is designed to get diversity of interest in building on that site. And then, lastly, while I wasn't able to attend many of the MLK services, and I'm sorry about that.
Babysitting, huh?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I've got another direction here for a few days, a few weeks. So, hello, darlings, because she's probably up. 'Cause she stays up a lot more than she stays down. So I missed several of those events on yesterday. But I missed the parade, of course, the breakfast and church programs. But let me just say this. While we celebrate Martin Luther King on yesterday, I think what we need to do is to actually practice what he stood for every day, not just the date that is celebrated and is a holiday. It's not a day off, it is a day on. That is what the motto we have said it should be. And so we hear a lot of talk about MLK, but it'll die down until Black History Month, then it'll die down to Juneteenth. We need to live our lives every day the way he would want us to, that he talked about. And we have high standards. So, Goldie, let me just say this. I support our minority businesses, I do. But I believe we can go further and we can do more and everything. So it's not that, I don't support them. I absolutely do, 100%. But I think we have to practice what Dr. King was all about every day. Thank you.
Yesterday, Reverend Aaron kept saying, is this the best we can do? And I think that's what you're saying. Is this the best we can do?
Councilman Holston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. A couple of things. First of all, I want to say thank you to the men of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity for sponsoring the Community Unity Prayer Call in honor of fallen Sergeant Del Nix. That was sponsored by the Tau Omega and the Beta Kappa Kappa chapters of Omega Psi Phi. And in speaking with the leadership there, they plan to do more, and they want to do more in the community for public safety in our community. And also, some others have spoken of, Councilwoman Thurm, thank you so much for the invitation to Temple Emmanuel for the ML King service there. It was wonderful, and the music was beautiful also. The breakfast, the ML King Jr. breakfast was great. I had an opportunity to participate in the ML King parade sponsored by the NAACP this year on Martin Luther King Drive itself. Even though the weather started off a little bit icy and cold and rainy, the crowd was still there. It was a very, very strong crowd, very energetic crowd, and lots of attendees in the formation itself. And then last but not least, I think some of us may have been there, but some of us also know we lost a member of our community this past week, Marie Cruz Harris. Her funeral was today at Providence Baptist Church, and Mayor Pro Tem and I plan to present a resolution in honor of Marie Harris in the future. Thank you, Madam Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just a quick hello from Washington, D.C. It is the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I don't get up here every year, but we've already had some great contacts. Spoke with Congresswoman Kathy Manning and had a meeting with Senator Ted Budd. We have a meeting tomorrow with Senator Tillis. So I think we'll be able to bring back some great things.
Thank you. Councilman Zach Bethany.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Certainly, there's a lot of things that went on last week, yesterday and last weekend, and as you hear the speeches, not just the speech of Martin Luther King Jr., there is a lot to follow, as Councilman Hightower stated. And when we lost another member of the Greensboro City staff family last week that Mr. Wilson relayed to us. Certainly an emotional ceremony for Sergeant Nix, a properly emotional ceremony. And I just want our women and men that are in public safety to know that that's not forgotten, that they're not forgotten, and all the people that are on city staff, not only our public safety officials, but all of the city staff family, as Mr. Wilson appropriately stated the other day. And so it's really been weighing heavy on me in particular, and just want them to know that when we sit up here, we have a job to do, and that's to govern in the best way we can. It's nothing personal, but at the end of the day, we all have their back, no matter what department you're in.
Thank you. Councilwoman Abuzawader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I attended the interfaith service on Friday evening by Zoom. I was watching online, and it was a lovely service. And then in person, the one at St. James for Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. I do want to also give a shout out to the Human Rights Commission. I serve as their liaison, and I'm very honored to do so because they did a wonderful job pulling all that together. And I also want to give a shout out to the Martin Luther King Breakfast Committee. That had many people from all across the community who came in to serve on that committee to help select the speaker, and I think everyone will agree he was amazing. It was Mr. Morris, Morris, I believe was his name. Yes, and just the whole day, they went 6:30 in the morning and helped set up, but it was just so many people from all over the community who knew how important not only Martin Luther King weekend is and the breakfast, but how to serve every day. I think that's the big takeaway is it shouldn't just be one day or one weekend, it should be every day. Saturday evening, there were the GOAT Awards. That's the Greatest of All Times Awards by the Families Against Senseless Killings. That was a very nice event. And Mothers Standing Against Gun Violence were in attendance as well. There were many awards given, too numerous to mention. I know if I will mention one person, I will leave somebody out, and that won't be to go over too well. So just to say that quite a few people. And the week for Sergeant Nix, I think we can all agree it's been a very emotional week for all staff. It has been a roller coaster of emotions, whether it is those in the community I've seen in tears or those police officers or staff. Every time something comes and someone does something else nice or makes a nice comment, it all comes flooding back. Saturday, I had the opportunity. I was just going to go and watch the fundraiser for the Nix family with all the motorcycles and the cars and the Jeeps and everything. And I was just going to be a spectator and watch. They were raising money for the family. Well, all of a sudden, I got shoved into the traffic line, so I was pulled into the caravan as well. And I wasn't planning on that part, but I am so glad I did because we went through so many sections of Greensboro, and there were people standing on the street corners, It was just very emotional. And to see in all areas of Greensboro that people were coming out of their homes to see, number one, what was going on, and then when they figured it out, that it was in honor of Sergeant Nix, that it was something to behold. So all of the people fundraising, I know Jeep Club has had fundraisers, everything for the family. Tunnels to Towers has paid off the mortgage for the family, something that, is just, that's not what the family should even be having to worry about right now, are paying the bills and seeing what's going to, happen next because they've lost a loved one. And, I still say, and many people have said, he was kind of the glue that held a lot of victims and their families together, and even our force, because he was a victim's advocate that I cannot tell you all of the things the man did. And then he became a victim. And I think that has touched this community. And I hope moving forward that his legacy will live on by helping us figure out how to reduce this violence, how to be those interrupters, and the things just to make our community safer. So that's all I have, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I won't repeat everything. I just like to say something really simple, which is I hope we'll be kinder to each other in this year, 2024. Mr. Manager?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney?
Thank you all for the vote today, and I have nothing else.
Trey, you want to make some comments?
I do want to, this is unconventional, but I think it needs to be said. You know, quite often, whether it's the community, whether it's police, whether it's other people, think that there's a divide sometimes between the police department and council. But personally, someone who spent 23, 24 years as a police officer, I worked directly with Sergeant Nix. The outpouring of support that I saw from you all was tremendous, and it meant more than you will ever understand. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe. Give me. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Okay. Let's go.